Hi everyone, I'm Al Cusson. I'm a regional director for dentalcorp and I work in the Ontario region. If you're seeing this video, it's because you're getting the opportunity to be able to do inventory counts within your practice. I understand that sounds like a daunting process, but don't worry, it's not as bad as it sounds. We've tried to make this as simple a process for you as possible, and we're giving you the opportunity to be able to purge in your practice and be able to organize your practice in ways that potentially you don't necessarily get the time to do it on a regular day-to-day basis. And don't worry, we as supervisors are going to be here to support you 100% along the way to help you make this process as simple as possible. You will receive a document that I'm going to go through today, and it's going to help lay out why we do what we do, how it has to be done, and the process of the way it'll get done once we get into the practice. After we've gone through the document, we'll probably go through and do a few little video shots of what preparation looks like within an operatory. So I'm here in a practice in Peterborough today, thanks to the great support of Dr. Jack Chang and Sarah, our dental assistant within the practice. They're actually getting their practice ready today for inventory count next week. So thanks to them for allowing us to be here today. And at some point, we'll probably get to see them. And Jody Cantarelli, who many of you already know, is here with me today to help support as well. So you might get to see her on a little bit of video aspect as well as we go through this. So sit back, don't worry. We've made this process as simple as possible, and we're going to talk about the details of how to prepare your practice in the most simple, most efficient way possible. So you will have gotten these instructions, so I'm going to start reading through these basically from the top to the bottom, okay? So instructions for practice managers. Why are we doing this? As part of our financial responsibilities as a company, and that doesn't matter whether you're one practice or 400 practices in a corporation. You have financial responsibilities in a statement audit that requires you to identify what you carry in the way of consumable items. So we are required to count the inventory of consumables, and dentalcorp is going to pay for the hours that we actually use in your practice to prepare for these inventories. So don't be concerned that this is going to cost you extra hours within your practice. It's going to go against your P&L within the practice. You're going to record the hours for the process, and we are going to pay for those. What is required to count is all consumables that are on hand within your practice. Any findings from the inventory count will not affect your financials either. So it doesn't matter if we find $10 or $10 million worth of inventory within your practice. And yes, I'm exaggerating, we're not going to find $10 million worth of inventory, but the dollar value is not going to have any financial impact to your P&L statements. This is just something for us to be able to record and use with our audit and be able to close our financial years. So what is the inventory? The inventory is a count of all consumables within your practice. This includes everything in every one of your operatories, and your sterilization bays, in your storage room, your front reception desks. It doesn't matter, anywhere where you have your consumables within your practice, we need to count those items. We do not count office supplies and stationery. So do not worry about inventory such as that. It is only the consumables that we use within our operatories and with our patients on a day-to-day basis. So this is required for us to be able to close our financial reporting year. This will be done on a rotation of practices as well. We're going to be doing about 10% of our total practices every single year. So if you're a lucky chosen one this year, you get to rest on the laurels of the fact that you probably won't have to do it for another 4 or 5 years. So that should make you feel good about having to do it now, although it doesn't help the fact that you are actually having to do it. I understand completely this is a daunting process and it's going to feel overwhelming at the beginning, but trust me, once we've gone through the process and once you see really how to do it and get it set up, it won't be that difficult in the end. And you heard the ladies laughing in the background there probably. That's a good thing because they're actually having fun getting prepared for this. Generally speaking, we like to come in and do the training at least 2 weeks prior to this event happening within your practice. Why? It gives you an opportunity to be able to start getting ready for the count for an entire week, and then allows us to be able to come back and check in on you to make sure that everything's okay, and then schedule our actual physical count. For many of you, you're going to have an outside company that's going to come in, that's going to be by the name of RGIS, that's going to come in and do the physical count for you. So you are prepping the practice to be counted. You are not doing the physical count itself. You will also get support from either myself, your regional director, or somebody from our finance team that is also trained in this process to be able to go out and get the practices ready for the count. So the support center is going to provide to you a detailed, specific list unique to your practice that is going to include all of the consumables that you've purchased through Coupa within the last year. So that file will be unique to your practice and your practice only. So every file is different. You cannot share files from one practice to another. Any labor requirements that you have during this time frame will be charged back to dentalcorp. Anything that is happening during the time of COVID-19 will have a slightly different process, and your ID or supervisor from dentalcorp will be able to help you and explain to you what that process will be. The last thing we want to do right now at this time is affect anybody that is on their EI compensation. The inventory count itself will be completed within about a 4 to 5 hour range in each practice, depending on the size of your practice. The preparation time depends on the size of your practice as well. What I like to give as a general rule of thumb is that it takes about a half an hour to prepare any hygiene room, about an hour to prepare a DDS room. If you have a surgical room, that probably takes about an hour and a half, just because of the amount of different inventory that we keep within those rooms. So please use that as guidance onto how many hours potentially it could take you to prep your practice. On top of your operatories, you also have your storage rooms. And again, depending on the storage rooms, if all your storage is within your ops, it might take you a little bit longer to do your ops first time through. If you have a large storage room, that storage room could take a little bit longer. So let's count an hour for storage. And then on top of that, your sterilization bays. Again, this varies greatly between practices, depending on what you have or where you keep your inventory within your practices. Some practices keep all of their cassettes and all of their instruments once they're sterilized, they're in the sterilization bay. So it might take longer to count that. But if you take your stuff from your sterilization bay into your ops, your sterilization bay will take less time to be able to do that. Within your practice, your regional director or the finance supervisor that will be responsible for your practice should have already communicated to you a date that we will be doing your preparation. So in other words, the training that we're doing now, then the actual physical count itself. So we will come in, help you, train you, describe to you how to prep your practices, and then we will come back and make sure that everything's okay. Or during this time of COVID, we will probably call in to say, hey, do you have any concerns or any support that you need? We will try and keep our contact as minimal as possible during this time. We will then come back on the day of the count, and we will be respecting all rules and regulations that are currently in place in relation to COVID-19. So we know that we cannot have a gathering of more than 5 people, so we will just be adjusting our timing to that. From the practice level, we absolutely need one person for sure during the day of the count to be able to help support any questions that we might have when we're in there doing the count. There will also be a supervisor that would be similar to myself or your RD or the financial person that is responsible for supervising the count that day. And then we will have 3 counters within the practice as well. So we will keep it to a maximum of 5. On your instruction sheets that you received, it says that Regis will be coming in to do the count. RGIS will not be the company coming in during COVID to do the count. It will be specific employees identified through dentalcorp, and anybody and everybody that comes into the practices will have gone through the proper screening processes. The number of counters will be determined on the practice and the size of the practice and the amount of operatories you have within the practice. However, during this time of COVID, we will be limiting that to the maximum of 5 gathering that we are allowed to have within a practice. So that could mean that if you have a large practice, the actual physical count could take longer than what would normally be done. So what we would normally try to have done within the 4 to 5 hour process, if you are a large practice and you have a lot of operatories and or you have a big storage area, this could take us a little bit longer than what we would really like it to take. Some supplies that are going to be required for you for preparation and for the inventory count itself. No matter what, we're going to need a couple of boxes of gloves. When I'm saying a couple of boxes, we need probably a couple of different sizes. So small, medium, large, depending on the people that come into the practice. So we would need probably a box of each size available the day of the count. We're also going to want a box of masks. We're going to want some ABA wipes because anybody that's coming in is going to have to wipe down their computers, and they're going to have to wipe down any instruments they take into an op with them. Whether it be a pen, a pad, whatever it is, they're gonna have to be wiping down what they're taking into the ops with them. We're also gonna want people wearing gowns, most specifically within sterilization bays, any areas of sterilization. You're gonna need a couple of rolls, 2 to 3 rolls of green painter's tape. Why green painter's tape? Because this is what you're going to use to label your product in your operatories. And again, why green painter's tape? A, it comes off very easily and leaves no residue. And B, when it does come off, it's not going to tear any sterilization packages or anything else like that. So it's not going to cause any damage in your practice at all. So no residue, no damage to any products within your practice. And the other thing I suggest is maybe a couple of black markers for being able to write onto the tape with and being able to label the product for you. Going on to the next page, our pre-inventory count readiness. So 2 weeks prior, so I am here today. We're doing this in a little bit faster process right now because our practices during COVID-19 are closed. So that gives us the opportunity to be able to prep our operatories very quickly and not have any interruptions of having patients that we're needing to worry about or changing what we've already prepped. So we're able to do things a little bit quicker than normal. Outside of regular process, we would be in at least 2 weeks prior to be able to give you the training process on how to be able to set up and be prepared for your practice. The most important thing as you're going through your practice and prepping it is to start purging and disposing of anything that is off code, expired dates, or stuff that you just don't normally use and won't use for a long time. If you haven't used something in a year or more, you're probably not going to use it. Probably a good time to get rid of it, and then it's something we don't have to prepare and it's something that doesn't have to be counted on the end. Organization of your operatories is probably the most important factor of how you're going to be able to prepare for this and how quickly you'll be able to prepare. Within many practices, hopefully your hygiene rooms are almost identical room to room to room. Your DDS operatories, if you are a single doctor practice, then your DDS rooms are probably set up almost identical as well. But if you have multiple doctors within your practices, they have their own way of the way they like to be able to set things up. So it might take a little bit longer to prep those, but that doesn't mean being organized is any different for any op. Try and make sure that everything is as organized as possible. If you have to go out and get some plastic trays to help organize your operatories, please go out and get those. Go to the dollar store, local dollar store, and get them ordered in during COVID or after COVID. Go out and buy these plastic trays to be able to organize your drawers and cabinets in a very logical, systematic way. If possible, make sure that your hygiene rooms and your DDS rooms are set up identically, because this is going to help your preparation process a lot quicker once you start labeling everything for the count. Cassettes and kits should remain intact. Do not take them apart. So your cassettes and kits, as soon as they are sterilized and put away, just keep them together. Just make sure that they're organized by the type of kit they are. Hygiene, PDO, DDS kit, whatever the case may be, make sure your kits are separated and organized all together in the same fashion. All of your time for this should be recorded and kept separate from your regular payroll. During this time of COVID, please just log the hours. Do not record them, just log the hours that are being used for this. So we've talked already about, if you've read through the document, we've talked about the master file that I talked about earlier that's going to be unique to your practice. We're getting into that step now, or that process now, into step 2, or page 2 of this process. Okay, so the support center will provide for you the file, and the file will be unique to your practice. The important things you need to understand on here are A, starting from left to right going across the spreadsheet, is basically who the supplier is. There's going to be a master category of what the item falls into, and then a subcategory of what that falls into as well. So it could be hand instruments, it could be burrs, whatever it is, it's going to fall into a master category and a subcategory. So that helps you filter through the file. The next one is the actual item description of the product that you have ordered through Coupa within the last year and the way you actually purchased it from Coupa within the last year. So the identical late name will be there for you because it's specific to your practice. The next column will be your unit of measure and how you ordered it. So if you ordered it as a single unit, or if you ordered as a box, one box of 50, i.e. a box of masks that comes in a box of 50, or whether it's something that you bought, i.e. gauze, where you bought 24 sleeves of gauze within a master case. So that will be how your practice has ordered it. The next column is actually the cost. Don't worry too much about the cost factor because it's an average of how you've purchased it. So if it's gauze and you've bought 200 cases over the year, it's going to be an average cost of what that gauze cost you over the year. The final column is probably the most important column, and it's the count category. So it's the item count category, and it's highlighted in yellow on your file. As you're going through your ops and you're prepping your items for count, you're going to go through the Excel spreadsheet. we have moved forward and we are providing a laptop for every practice for the person that's doing the preparatory work. You're going to be able to use the Excel file. You're going to be able to use Control F, or as I like to say it, if you don't know how to do this, you are in control and you are trying to find something. That's the easiest way for you to be able to remember how to use the Control F function within your spreadsheet. So you're going to be in control and you're going to find Control F, and you're going to type in what it is you're looking for so that you can find the inventory count number that you're going to affix to it. If you put in burr and it doesn't come up as the exact burr that you're looking for, simply click on the Find Next, and it's going to take you to the next type of burr that it's found. Keep clicking on Find Next until you find the exact burr that it is you're looking for. As soon as you have that burr or whatever that item is, then slide over to the right-hand side, the very last column in yellow, and the item count number that is with that column is what you're going to mark on the masking, on the green painter's tape that you are going to put with the item. Labeling instructions, we've already talked about purchasing a couple of rolls of green painter's tape. So this is what you're going to use your actual labeling. And it's going to be quite simple. You're going to bundle and group things together in like items, and you're going to use the green painter's tape with the marker, and you're just going to write on that green painter's tape whatever the item is when you've gone through Control F and found that item, and your inventory count category is what you're going to put on that number. So if you've identified something as a gauze, you've identified the count number for it, and then it's number 42, all you're going to do is put number 42 on that count or on that label, and you're going to fix that label to the item. Inventory will need to be labeled for the counters to be able to count it. If it is not labeled, they are instructed not to count it, okay? So please, everything that needs to be counted must be labeled. There's going to be a few variations that we're going to talk about in a minute that'll contradict what I've just said, but generally speaking, if the item is labeled, they're going to count it, and or we're going to have another label on it that's going to say we've counted it somewhere else. So if something's not labeled, it will not be counted. Some of the stuff in our practices we do not want to count. A great example is the small tubes of toothpaste that you give after your hygiene appointments to your patients as they're leaving. Those are supplied to us free from our supplier. We do not pay for them, so it is not a dollar asset value to us. So something like that is going to be something that is going to be considered a DNI. In some cases, we're going to be sharing stuff throughout practices. Great examples again, gauze, bibs, the toothbrushes that you provide for your patients when they're leaving. Those are something that we share all throughout the ops within the practice. Generally speaking, you have one storage spot and one storage spot only for those. When you are prepping those items, you're going to look at this and you're going to say, I've got half a box of gauze here. However, I do know that I've got another half a case dispersed throughout the rest of the practice. We are going to count that in one spot and one spot only. We're not going to try and count it in every operatory. Bibs, another great example. Tray liners, all those types of things that we know that we share throughout the operatories, we're going to try and count them in one spot and one spot only. If you have a storage room, that's probably the primary spot to count them. If you disperse everything throughout your operatories, my suggestion is you count it in one operatory and one operatory only, and then you're going to put a tag on it that says shared throughout operatories, as you see here within your instructions. The DNI label is also there for you, and what we're going to do is when we go into that next operatory and we've got bibs in there, now because we've already counted it somewhere else, we're going to put a DNI label on there on those bibs within that operatory. So it's a do not inventory in that operatory because we know we've already accounted for it somewhere else. In the operatories, try and organize the inventory in your drawers and cabinets in the same way in every room. And consider affixing your count labels to the inventory that won't be used prior to the count, or onto the drawer itself in the inventory where it's applicable to. During COVID-19, most of you are going to be closed. We're not going to have to worry about this. You're going to be able to bundle things very easily together using the green painter's tape and put one number on it, and we don't have to worry about them being used on a daily basis with our patients that are coming in through the practice while you're doing your preparatory. So there is an advantage for us, for you at practice level, to be able to do this because it's going to be easier for you to be able to prep this and not have anybody going back and removing labels that you've already put labels on. So it should be a much easier process now that your practice is closed. For sterilized items, please place the stickers on the inside of the drawer or cabinet as opposed to on the item itself. That way, we don't have to worry about tearing or ripping the package when we remove the labels after the fact. One of the biggest suggestions I can provide for you as you're going through is do all your hygiene rooms at the same time, and then do all your DDS rooms at the same time. The reason for that is, once you've done one hygiene room, I'm going to ask you after you've done each cabinet or after each drawer to use your cell phone and take a picture of what you've labeled within that cabinet or drawer. Why? Because when you go to the next room, you're going to be able to pull up your picture. You don't have to go back to your laptop and try and find everything again. Because your drawers and cabinets are set up the same way, you're going to be able to pull up your picture. You're going to be able to see how you numbered it in the previous operatory, and it's going to be very quick and very easy for you to be able to say, this was number 47, there's number 47. This was number 72, there's number 72. This was 164, there's 164. The process will go a lot quicker for you once you've done your first operatory. Plus, when you're doing hygiene all at the same time, it's very easy to remember the sequencing and what you've just done already. There are going to be items in a cabinet that weren't in that previous cabinet though. So you're still going to have to identify those. But let's say there's 10 items in the cabinet, maybe 8 of those items you already had the numbers for. Now you're only going back to the Excel file to try and find 2 items instead of all the items that you previously used. My suggestion is, when you get the master file from us, is to go through that master file as well and just get a bearing of what's in there and try using the Control F function so you can start getting familiarized with it before you actually start going in and doing your prep. Within your file, there's going to be a lot of miscellaneous numbers as well. The miscellaneous numbers are there for items that potentially were bought or that you can't bought more than a year ago. So remember, the file is only for the last 12 months. So it could be stuff that you purchased greater than 12 months ago, or it could be stuff that you purchased through an ulterior source that we do not have within Coupa. For that, we're giving you lots of miscellaneous numbers with dollar ranges in it. You should be able to know that if you bought something from an alternative source, or you bought it more than a year ago, that the item was worth $50 or it was worth $100 or worth $200. There's going to be a large variation of miscellaneous numbers within that file. Use the dollar value that corresponds with that miscellaneous number. For miscellaneous numbers, if you cannot find a dollar value that is, or a description that is similar to what you're looking for, it is okay to use a different description that has the correct dollar value for it. So if it is an item that you purchased previously and you cannot find a description for it, but you know that it costs you $74, go to your miscellaneous number that gives you the range that the $74 fits into and use that number. The count we are doing is not specific to the item that you have within your practice. It is more specific to the dollar value, and that's what we're concerned with. Based on your understanding of the inventory at your practice, you are going to be best prepared to be able to prep your practice for this inventory count. There is no limit on how many labels you can use or how often you label something. Just please make sure that it's labeled to the function of what the item is and what the pack size is. What we don't want to do is make sure we don't count something twice. So for any open package, i.e. antibacterial wipes that you have in every single operatory, we want to make sure that we label it in every single operatory. If the container has been opened, you're going to find the item number through the item count number, and you're going to say it's number 47, and you're going to put number 47 times a half when it is open. If it is unopened, you're just going to put number 47. So anything and everything that has been opened, you're going to want to count as a half a pack. So anything that is a half a pack is going to be the item count number times 0.5. Otherwise, it's going to be counted as a full unit or multiples of full units if there's more than one within that label. If you have things that there's more than one of within the cabinet, you do not have to label every single one of them. You only have to label one and then make sure that they're organized together so that we can understand it's number 62, but there's 5 units here. We're going to count the 5 units times 62. You do not have to label every single unit, just the one primary unit, and then the counters will count the units in behind that. We've talked about taking pictures as you go, so please make sure you do that to help speed up your process as you get into your other preparation areas. On the day of the count, The person that has done the preparation for us is going to be needed to be there for the count as well. Why? Because we are going to have questions as we go through and start doing the count. And the person the best to ask those questions to is the person who prepared it and knows the inventory in your practice the best. So yes, we are going to need you there primarily to get the practice set up and prepared, but then we're going to need you back there for the day of the count itself. On the day of the count, your supervisor is going to arrive at least a half an hour early compared to the scheduled count time. So if your count time start is 9 o'clock, the supervisor is going to need to be there at 8:30 to be able to start prepping the practice for count. There is nothing you need to do at that point other than walk around with the person that is supervising to make sure that they label the practice properly. They will be instructed on how to label the practice. You don't need to worry about that. All you need to do is help us make sure that we label everything that needs to be counted. And when I'm saying labeling, it's a count tag that we are going to be putting on every single area within the practice that needs to be counted. So every drawer, every cabinet, every x-ray apron that's hanging on a wall, we're going to go through and we are going to put tags on those items. Those tags are going to be sequentially numbered so that we know at the end of the count that we can go through and pull off every single tag, tag by tag. There'll be a signature from the counters on those tags for us to ensure that that section was counted so that we know the process was well taken care of. So please, on the day of the count, do not take down any of those tags. The supervisor will be responsible for taking down those tags as we go through the process. There's a few more things within the instructions that really don't affect you from the preparation standpoint. So from that aspect, I'm going to leave the instructions from this point on. We're going to go in a little bit and we're going to start taking some photos within the ops of some things that we suggest on how to do things that might help understand a little bit better. Going through the process here with Sarah and Jody today, and Dr. Jack, they understood from reading the process of what they needed to do. But once we got into the op and we started talking about it a little bit more, they really understood a little bit more of what we were talking about, and the whole process came together quite quickly. So please, I understand that this is daunting. I understand that this isn't something that's most exciting to do, but I'll be honest with you, the practices that have done it already are kind of going, I'm glad we did this because A, we got rid of a lot of stuff we didn't need in our practice, and B, it really helped us understand our ordering process and what we need to be ordering going forward, because we found out about inventory we had in here that we didn't necessarily realize we had. So they've actually enjoyed the process and felt that at the end of the process, it was a good thing to go through. So I know it's not daunting, I know it's not exciting, but trust me, I think you're going to be happy with it in the end of it. Hi again, folks. We're going to go into one of our hygiene ops now, and we're going to walk through the operatory on how you should be prepping the operatory. I'm going to walk you through from the exact process of how we would tag the operatory when we're counting it, but this is the way I want you to use as a thought process of when you're preparing the operatory so that we make sure that we don't miss anything and that we get everything taken care of. So now we're going to go in and take a look. Everything we do in a clockwise formation. So every time the entire practice we will go through in a clockwise formation, and every room we will go in a clockwise formation as well. So as soon as I come in through the door, I'm immediately turning to my left and I'm going to the first wall on my left. What I would like you to do is if you have anything on top of your cabinets, that gets labeled first. Then we come into our cabinets below. With one drawer, we open this up. As you will see, there's a divider between the cabinets. I would want this section counted first, and then I would want this section counted second. Because these are straight rows, it's just start from the top and work your way to the bottom. That's the way you want to do your preparation. Coming into our next cabinet, you'll notice that there's a divider between the two doors. When you're prepping this cabinet, I want you starting on the top left shelf and working left to right and labeling things. Then you go to your next shelf and do the exact same thing. When you finish that cabinet, you'll come to the next cabinet and do the exact same thing. Again, start at the top, work your way left to right, then go to your next shelf down and work yourself left to right. If there is no divider, between your doors. So if this does not exist and it's one consistent shelf throughout the entire cabinet, I want you starting in the top left and going right across to the very far right, and then coming to your next shelf, starting bottom left and going all the way to the right. The next spot to go is onto your countertops and whatever is on your countertops. So all these items here in the corner, most of these are already in use. You're still going to need to label those, but you're going to label them all as a half of unit. So it's going to be whatever the item count number is times 0.5. We will then come down to underneath the counters. You'll notice in this particular instance, they have the intraoral camera affixed to the side. This does need to be counted. We will then come into our banks of drawers. Cavitrons do need to be labeled. We will then come into each of our drawers underneath, and you can see that these are very well organized. We will come back and show you another opportunity where they've actually done some labeling to give you some more indication on that after the fact. Every one of these drawers will need to be labeled. In this particular instance, it's just paperwork that's in here, and this is not inventory that we need to count. So you're fine to put either on the outside of the drawer with the green tape or on the inside of the drawer on the side, DNI, do not inventory. Coming into our next drawers, some of this stuff is items like this is inventory that we buy in multiple packages. This is a great example where we're going to count it somewhere else and we're not going to count it within the operatory. So you're going to count it as a master case somewhere, and in this case, you're going to put a DNI on here because we're counting it somewhere else. Your gloves, whatever the glove box number is, times 0.5 because it is open. It doesn't matter if the box is 25% full or 75% full. If it is opened and been used, it's going to be counted as a 0.5. Toothbrushes such as these are ones that we are buying and we're providing for our patients after their visits. These are items that have to be inventoried. Again, you get these in a master case. You probably have a storage area for them and you disperse them throughout the practices from there. In that case, count them in your storage area, determine if you have a full case within the entire practice, and then on the label put the item number times 1. If you've got a full case in there and you say, you know what, we've got another half a case throughout the practice, in the storage area, do it times 1.5. Underneath sink cabinets, sometimes you have cleaning supplies down underneath here. Those do need to be labeled as well, so please ensure that there's some there. If there is nothing underneath the counter that needs to be done, feel free to put a label on the outside, DNI. That finishes wall 1. I then continue in my clockwise formation and I come to another wall and I look for anything that needs to be inventoried within this wall. We do have x-ray bibs, aprons that are here. These do need to be inventoried, so this will need to be labeled and we will tag this and count this when we're doing it. That entire wall is now done. We come to our third wall, there is nothing on the wall. The wall is done. We come to our fourth wall, there is nothing on the wall is done. We were just in a hygiene room, now we're going to go into a DDS room because the DDS room is a little bit more complex than a hygiene room because we got more inventory and more stuff within them. So let's go in and take a walk through here now. Our process does not change. We continue to move in the clockwise formation. So we come in, immediately the wall on my left is where we're going to start. We start with the upper top of the cabinet, if we have any inventory up there, and then we go into the cabinets themselves. I've got these drawers open already. There are only 3 doors, but as you can see, there's partitions all the way through. So we are going to want a count for this unit, every item labeled individually. Again, within this cabinet, every item labeled individually, every item labeled individually, and in here, labeled individually. Here's another great example though, of where stuff that we may not want to be counting within this operatory. Our bibs in this room, these come in a master case. We've got some dispersed into this room. We want to count them as the master case somewhere else, and then in here, it's going to be a DNI, okay? So bibs, tray liners, whatever the case may be, we want to count them once and once only. Because of the way the cabinetry is set up a little bit differently here, again, we're working from top, left to right, coming down. We're going to come down into these banks of drawers, and each one of these banks of doors and drawers is going to have to be organized and prepared for inventory count. So this section will be done as one section. Then we go to our countertops. Okay? Items on the countertops will need to be counted, and then we move down into our cabinets below. In some cases, you've got storage of empty boxes or whatever the case may be. That is all D&I. Make sure they are labeled as D&I. That finishes this wall. We continue to move clockwise throughout the operatory, and all of a sudden we've got oxygen tanks and we've got mouth guards. These absolutely need to be inventoried. Depending on who you get your gas from, who refills your tanks, it could be Medigas, it could be Praxair, depending on who it is. The value of your gas tank, the gas within the tank, is what you're going to be reporting. You should have that within your Coupa file, and you should be able to get that dollar value quite easily. So please don't forget to make sure that we get all of our oxygen tanks anywhere throughout the practice. If you are a large practice and you have storage tanks outside, then they need to be counted as well. The rest of the wall is complete. We come onto our next wall and we start looking around. We have a fan in here. A fan is not something that we would be taking into our inventory. So this is absolutely a D&I. We do not count that. It has nothing to do with physical assets of the property. But on our far side of the wall, we do have an apron again hanging on the wall. We want to make sure that that is captured and counted. That finishes that wall, and then we come into our final wall. Again, we always start from the top, left to right. There's no cabinetry up above, so as we move our way down, we do have a countertop, and we definitely have stuff, sanitizers and soaps that are on the countertops. Those need to be counted. So that is where you would prepare next. Then you would come down underneath the cabinet, and you would go left to right. You would look within products that is within the cabinets and determine, does that need to be counted or not counted? So this is a great example of where we've got our bibs. That's the master case. This is probably where we want to count it within the practice and not anywhere else. We then come into our drawers, and you can see that there's great organization. When your supervisor comes in, they'll give you better details on how to prepare your burrs, and you'll have to understand how it is that you buy your burrs and whether they're finishing burrs, polishing burrs, diamond tip or carbide tip. You're going to need to understand that and group them together when you do it. So each of these drawers will need to have labels on them. And understanding how this comes packaged, you know this comes in a sleeve of 10, but when you buy this, there's 5 sleeves in a box. So you're actually buying 50 tubes at once. So we have to make sure that we're counting it as a box of 50, not counting each and every one of these as the dollar value of a box of 50. Gloves into the drawers. The gloves are open. So again, whatever the applicable count number is for those boxes times a half. And then finally, sometimes you have broken instruments that you're keeping and storing within a practice because you have the opportunity to be able to turn in brokens for new products. With hand instruments, you could have a deal with somebody where you're getting 10 for 1, 10 brokens to get 1 new, or hand pieces, it might be 3 brokens or 4 brokens for 1 new. If you have that, group them together in what the value would be for the value of what you would get for on it. So if you have 10 hand instruments that are broken and you're going to get 1 for it, bundle those together, but put it for the dollar value of the 1, not of the 10. Now we're going to move into a sterilization bay. Again, the process does not change. We walk in through the door, we immediately go to our left. We've got a wall with nothing on it, so we come to our next wall. And again, you start from your top. Follow how your cabinets are done. Because this is a bank of cabinets, we would start here and then go to here. Within this cabinet, you would start with your top shelf, left to right, your next shelf, and follow this sequence to do your preparation work to ensure that you capture everything within the cabinet. We would finish this section by doing here, and then we would come down the wall and we would do our countertop. Once the countertop is prepared, then you would go down into your cabinets below. This is a garbage bin, so I'm not gonna open that one. But down underneath your cabinets, you may have cleaning supplies down underneath your cabinets that need to be included into that as well. We would then come to our next wall and we would follow the exact same process. We open up the doors, there's no divider in between, so you count left to right, left to right, left to right, and then you're complete. We move down onto our countertop, nothing underneath. Coming in over top of our Bravos, we have one cabinet. We would look at this one cabinet and we would do the exact same thing with no divider in it. We would go left to right, left to right, left to right. Next section we would do here, and then our countertop. And then finally, we would do the exact same thing here and down below. Again, always check to make sure whether or not we have dividers in the cabinet. With no dividers, you count it as one solid shelf. If we did have a divider in here, I would want you counting here to here, here to here, here to here, and then coming back and starting over and going here to here, here to here, and here to here. So if there's a divider, you break it up where the divider is. If there's no divider, continuously count across the shelf. And then finally, all your kits and cassettes. Your kits and cassettes do not have to be broken down. We've talked about this already. Once they are stacked together, they are fine. Once they are finalized, and all you have to do is on the shelf beside it or on the wall beside it, just put your number of what that kit number applies to. So whether it's a hygiene kit, a DDS kit, an ortho kit, a PDO kit, doesn't matter what it is, on your miscellaneous file, you will have numbers for those kits. So just put those kit numbers on the side of your cabinets. And then you're complete. So we just went through a hygiene op and said, here's how we prepare it. Now I want to take you back into one that's already been prepared and show you how the tagging actually looks. So come on in and let's take a look at some of the stuff and what we're done in here. So as we talked about, always start from the top and work our way down, right? Left to right all the time. We have our converter for our TV. Notice how we've got DNI on here because we do not inventory electronics. So that is absolutely correct in having a DNI on in there. But you can see how they've just got an item number on here. So this is something that's just toys for the kids when they're in here, right? So you buy this as a master pack and there's a dollar value for it. So you've probably got a case worth. So if you just put your item number on there, that's all you need to do. Your trays and then DNI for the head cushion. Coming into the cabinet, this is all just stationary and informational products. So there's absolutely a DNI on this. Coming into the next one, we've got our trays, all labeled as 68, perfect, 35s, 47s, DNI, do not inventory the inventory that's in there. Carrying on to the next shelf, you'll notice we talked about dividers. There's no divider in between the two cabinets here. So when they've done their counting, they've started in the top left corner, they put DNI on stuff that they do not need to inventory, and they put 55 times 0.5. So this is the headrest covers at 55, so they've got half a case worth here, so that's why they've got the 0.5 on it. But you'll notice coming straight across the rest of the cabinet, they've got everything marked and ready to be counted. So this makes it very, very easy for the counters when they come in here to be able to just look, see the number, and then do the count appropriately. All items within the countertop that are open have been labeled as 0.5 or a DNI, okay? DNI could be because it's garbage or it's something they've already counted for somewhere else. In some cases, you may have a refill that you're using and that's why you would DNI it here. Okay, but 0.5s, these are both full. So they're both the same item. You don't have to label both. 108, the counter is gonna come, they're gonna go 108 times 2, we're good to go. Down into our cabinets, we've captured the intraoral camera on the side and we captured the units inside as well. Opening up our drawers, see how we bundled things together very easily and put the number right on it. That makes it super easy for the counters when they come in here to be able to look at that and say, this is what I need to do, and that's how we finish things off. This is extremely well organized, very easy for the counters to be able to count within here. Again, reminder, take your picture of the drawer because when you go to your next op, you're going to be set up very, very similarly and you're going to be able to really speed up your process as you go through your other ops. DNI on the outside of the drawer. These are all things that are being counted as master packs within the rest of the practice. So this is shared throughout practice. Therefore, we do not need to label them in this op and they simply become a DNI. Open boxes of gloves and masks and sleeves, camera covers. These are all bought in individual sleeves. Yes, you may get your gloves in a case of 12, but you are paying for them individually. You do not pay for them by the master case. When you order these, you order them by 6 or 12, however you order them, depending on what your need are, and they come in a master case. But each one of them is charged by the individual box. So we want 92 times 0.5 because the box is open. 45 times 0.5 because the box is open. So please make sure that you're putting your 0.5s on anything that is open. And again, the last drawer is D&I because this is all stuff that's going to be counted in a master case because you purchase this all in a large bulk quantity. We talked about fans that were D&I. That is not a consumable product within our practice. So absolutely it is a D&I. And please notice that all the aprons have been labeled as well. That concludes our instructions for today. I know we've gone through a lot of steps, and during the process, you've seen some of what we've been talking to. Sorry this has been 30 minutes, but I know there's a lot of information, a lot of content that we need you focused in on to make your process easier for you. So thanks for your support on this. Don't forget, we are here 100% of the way to help you along the process and answer any questions you need. Please reach out to your supervisor, or if you can't get a hold of them, please feel free to reach out to myself as well, and we will do everything we possibly can to help you in the moment during your preparation time. Thanks for everything. I look forward to seeing you in the future.